Since 2019, I'm State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation. The State Secretariat is responsible for the national and international policy in education, research and innovation. This means we prepare all the decisions for the Federal Council, and of course, in the end, we also have to take care that they are activated in the best possible way. And this means we are responsible for vocational education and training, as well as higher education, the cantonal universities, the Swiss Federal Institutes of Technology, the universities of applied sciences, the universities of teacher education. And in the area of education, vocational education and training, and higher education, there is a shared responsibility between the federal government and the cantons. So, of course, we are only responsible for the federal part. And we are also responsible for funding research, funding innovation, for international cooperation, and for our actions concerning space. So this means Switzerland is member of ESA, and we are responsible for the ESA membership and the programs we participate in. It's all about excellence. So we have to find ways to support excellence in education, research and innovation in Switzerland. And so the funding agencies have a high responsibility concerning the evaluation mechanisms, concerning the programs to drive for excellence. Bottom up, top down, that's always a discussion. So if I'm abroad, people ask me, how is this possible? Why don't you define certain programs? Digitalization is very important, artificial intelligence, many other topics. How can you go ahead without having top-down programs? And first, we have some possibilities for a kind of top-down funding. We have the National Centers of Competence in Research, the NCCRs. These are large research programs for 12 years with high funding for the partners of these NCCRs. And usually they also evolve bottom up. So usually we get suggestions for different topics, and then we have evaluations on excellence, but then also we have a look on the political needs, on the strategy for the future. So we have possibilities to combine with our bottom-up system some top-down elements. And I like to use as an example quantum technology. So Switzerland is quite advanced concerning quantum science and technology. Why is this the case? This is the case because we already started in 2001 the first 2 NCCRs concerning quantum science and technology. And this is not why politics or administration said, oh, we have to be active in quantum. 2001, nobody in politics and administration was talking about quantum, but the researchers did. And our funding mechanisms allowed to build up capabilities quite early. And now we are quite strong in this field. So I think looking far ahead, scientists do this much better than politics and administration. And with our system, we enable this, and that's important. Not to be associated to the European research and innovation programs is a disadvantage for Switzerland and the European Union. It's a lose-lose situation. Switzerland is a very strong partner. We have very good universities. We have invested in a lot of topics and corporations over the last decades together with our European partners. And it's it's not a good situation for us and for our European partners. Of course, it's always possible to make political links, and that's what the European Union is doing, making a political link concerning institutional questions concerning the market access. But looking a little bit more on a global scale, I think we have a strong competition nowadays between the US, China, and Europe is somewhere in between. And actually, it's very important for Europe to be strong in research and innovation. We will also, as Europe as a whole, not be able to solve all the important questions on our own. We also have to work on a more global scale together. And actually, from my point of view, we should do everything to strengthen Europe together. We are ready, we are prepared. Right now, the only thing we can do is to make everything to enable our researchers in this situation to have interesting projects and corporations. We have, on the one hand, transitional measures. The Federal Council decided about 1.2 billion Swiss francs for the years 21 and 22 for transitional measures. This is used on the one hand to participate in projects from the European programs which are open for Swiss participation, but not financed by the Commission. Then we finance directly from our State Secretariat to enable the cooperation. Then we have programs where applications from Switzerland are not possible. This is especially the ERC part, where it's about funding persons, and the EIC part, where it's about funding innovation. There we have mandated, on the one hand, the Swiss National Science Foundation to set up programs to allow the best persons to get grants comparable to the ERC. And for the EIC, actually, that's quite interesting. You see, challenges are always also opportunities. So in Switzerland, up to now, it was not possible to fund companies for innovation directly. Due to the situation that we are not associated to the European programs, the Parliament decided to change the legal basis, and now it's possible to set up programs similar to the EIC programs of the European Union. And Innoswiss received the mandate to prepare such a program, and the Swiss Accelerator actually was started in April. The first call was launched in April. And so we enable our companies and startups, so SMEs and startups, to have access to similar programs like in the European programs. So some things advance, and of course that's not the objective. The objective of the Federal Council is to be associated as soon as possible. But of course, right now we build the bridge for a soon association with the transition measures. And at a certain point, of course, we will have to reflect if we have to change from transition measures to replacement measures. Because I always say a transition is that you cross a bridge, and the bridge needs somewhere to see the end of two sides. And if this is not the case, then of course you need to orient in a way which is more focused on your real own needs. But that's not the objective. Competition in research and innovation is of course always possible, also being outside of the European research and innovation programs. I think we have to make also a difference concerning young researchers and established researchers. So an established researcher at a Swiss university has a lot of possibilities, funds, established international corporations. You can have international corporations without Horizon Europe. We have a lot of funds by the Swiss National Science Foundation and also other opportunities. And young researchers, of course, they want to compete in a way and have a prestigious prize at the end. And of course, the ERC for a young researcher is something they can show, yes, I have been successful in this international competition. And we are absolutely aware of this situation, and I think that's also why we have to take care, especially for the young researchers, to have alternatives where they can cooperate also in the international context, because usually they have to build up their networks. They are just in a different situation. Of course, but as a complement, we think to deepen our international bilateral cooperations, this is something we should do with and without association to the European Research and Innovation Program. So we do this with a long-term strategy, and I think this is very important. And with the US, for example, we have an agreement for cooperation in research and innovation from 2009. We have a cooperation between our funding agencies, especially the Swiss National Science Foundation and the US National Science Foundation. Last November, both funding agencies signed an agreement for a so-called deeper cooperation for a lead agency agreement. This means that they have program calls and only one agency is doing the evaluation. This changes then every other year. And we are just before starting the first call under the lead agency agreement. Last week I was in the US to sign an agreement concerning the cooperation in quantum science and technology, and we just added a Swiss-US Quantum Day, because if you look at the statistics concerning publications, number one is Switzerland, number two is the US, so we are the two strongest countries, so it's interesting to deepen our bilateral cooperation in this area. So there's a lot we do, but again, we take up points where there's interest from the community. It's not top down that we say we have to do quantum with the US, but if we feel that it's interesting for our communities, we try to support. And again, what I mentioned already before, our funding agencies are very important. We can have, let's say, like a political umbrella to give the commitment that we want to do more together between the two countries. But in the end, we need the funding agencies having interesting programs for our research and innovators. And with UK, it's quite similar. Actually, we already wanted to sign an agreement for cooperation in July. But you see, with the UK, it's not so easy right now. Just 1 week before we had the appointment, we had the government decided not to continue their work, and we will have a signature of the agreement quite soon. And of course, it's interesting with the UK. We did not have such an agreement like we already had with the United States. And now we go a step ahead there as well. But again, together with the Swiss National Science Foundation and Innoswiss, with the idea that they then offer with their partner agencies programs which are interesting for the researchers in UK and Switzerland. And it's not all. We have a lot of other cooperations with different countries, and we are also about to deepen our cooperation with Israel, for example, with Japan. And that's an opportunity. I think here we also have to look at the different framework conditions of the different types of companies. The larger companies with own research and innovation departments, they usually are quite well connected with the university sector, and they have common research programs and they have cooperation. So I think there it's of utmost importance that we have a good funding for basic research. But for SMEs, it's a different situation. And here I think is really our role to enable and intensify this cooperation, to allow SMEs to use the knowledge which is available in the university system. And so in Switzerland, one of our funding agencies, Innoswiss, is exactly there with the objective to support innovation, excellent innovation, and the largest part of their funding activities is projects in cooperation between universities and companies. And we have in Switzerland a quite special approach if you compare it to the international situation. There are many countries who finance companies for innovation activities to 100%. We say, no, we want to enable companies to have access to know-how and knowledge at universities, be it cantonal universities, ECHs, universities of applied sciences. But we expect that the companies themselves invest in the innovation programs. Because we think in the end, if such a project is successful, to bring the result to the market needs anyhow much more effort and investment as well. So it's important in the first step that the company is really committed and interested in this project. So we have a so-called 50-50 funding, 50% by the government and 50%, or in our case, Innoswiss, the funding agency of Switzerland, and 50% by the companies. And this is really to enable to bring the actors together. And of course, there are a lot of different formats like networks which are established, which allow the exchange to get to know each other. And I think we also have with the universities of applied sciences a very interesting setup. Actually, we have this due to our very special education system, because we have a very strong part with the apprenticeship programs, the professional baccalaureate, and then the studies at the universities of applied sciences. But at the same time, they have the objective to do applied research, which is usually much closer to application and especially to SMEs than basic research in quantum science, for example. And so, yes, we try always to have a look at our education system as a whole and how can we benefit from this in research and innovation, and what does this mean for the different types and needs for the private sector in Switzerland. I think we have to look at different questions. One question is, how do we perform in research concerning digitalization? Looking at computer science, artificial intelligence, and so on, we are very good in research. The other topic is, how can we make business out of the results with startups, for example? And there is another question also concerning the use of data, the use of research data, but also the use of public data. And the use of public data is quite demanding in Switzerland, because we have, of course, the topic of safety and security of data, which is an important topic. but let's take health data as an example. We talk a lot about the risk of misuse of health data, and of course it's important to look at it, but we rarely talk about the risk if we do not use our health data, because if we don't use it, we miss opportunities for new pharmaceuticals, we miss also other opportunities in bringing data together and analyzing situations and make good things for the patient in this context. So I think these are really different questions we have to address. And concerning research, I think we are on a good way, and also looking at all the statistics, we are really looking at artificial intelligence, for example. If you look at the amount of publications and the impact of publications per capita, we are top, we are on the first place. So it's not that we miss something, but then for the next step, making business models, yes, we have to do something, and especially we have to provide also access to know-how. The EPFL, for example, they started the Swiss Data Science Center, bringing know-how in artificial intelligence to private companies with the idea that it's important to show them what kind of data is interesting, how could you use this data, and so on. So yes, we have some topics to address. And I think also we need a discussion in society, how we want to use our data in our interest, and how we are willing, always of course in an anonymous form, to provide data also for new businesses also in Switzerland, because they start the new businesses, but we have to make it possible that they start in Switzerland. So it's an important point. I think we have to find ways to increase the number of women in the STEM field. There are a lot of activities going on. So, for example, we give a mandate to the academies to offer certain programs to increase the interest of women in the STEM area. For example, there is a program which is called Tech Ladies, where you have women who show what is necessary to do to be successful in computer science, for example, or in math or in other areas. We have programs where teachers are supported to prepare special programs for school, for example, to motivate already the very young ones, because we know from studies that the decision, if you're interested in STEM topics, is taken quite early. So it's not with 14 or 15 if you start to think about your career, be it in apprenticeship programs or at the university. Usually it's much earlier. So you have to offer possibilities to the young people to get in contact with these STEM topics, not only in a classical way, doing calculations in school. And a lot is done and a lot improves. So we increased the amount of female STEM students over the last years, but it's still on a low level, so we have further room for improvement. And another important point in this context is also the activity of women as professors at universities. And here all the universities in Switzerland did really a strong work to increase the percentage of women in professor positions, because usually this also helps to motivate women to go in a certain directions if they see there are others who did it before and in a successful way.
So